Hey everyone, it's Ed from Sonderpods here. We get asked a lot when people look at the pricing on our website about, well, how's that going to change for them and can I rely on the pricing on the website or whichever. So what I wanted to do is just quickfire give you the 9 biggest reasons for cost changes when it comes to doing a modular home installation, especially for accessory dwelling units. So there's a lot to cover, so I'll just go through them very, very quickly. If you want more information on each one of these, or if you think any of these are applicable to your situation, then please feel free to get in touch with one of the team and we can talk you through what your options are. So I'm going to rank this, the top 9 in order. So coming in at number 9 is transportation distances. Some people think that this is actually a bigger issue than what it actually is. It's only number 9 on our list. Yeah, sure, once, if you're looking at covering additional distances with trucks and things like that, then there's additional charges when it comes to fuel and various other things like that. But it's really just normally a smaller amount when you think about the total cost of the project. So I've got transportation in at number 9, and the potential changes in cost are somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 from the low end of transportation through to the high end. Coming in at number 8 is the first on the list, which is to do with sewer systems. This is the requirement for a sewer ejector pump. So traditional sewer systems rely on gravity to move the waste from the unit through to the sewer clear out. But sometimes if you're on a hillside where your property slopes away from the street, it's an uphill run to where the sewer is. So gravity doesn't work in that situation, so therefore you need to use what we call a sewer ejector pump. Now, that's something that needs to be added to the system to make sure that we're clearing all of the waste out of the ADU effectively. And typically that runs at $3,000 to $7,000. So that comes in at number 8 on the list. At number 7 is another one which I think that when you ask people is that this tends to come up as one of the potential risks more often than not. And that is the cost of, well, what are these cranes? Are they really expensive? And yes, cranes are quite expensive, relatively speaking. However, the variance in the cost depending on your particular project is actually fairly small. So typically, the cost of a crane increases if you are looking to crane units over larger distances. It's just a physics equation. So the further you have to place a unit away from the crane, the larger that crane needs to be. So you can go from anywhere from a 100-ton crane through to potentially a 400-ton crane, and there are different costs associated with each one of those. But really, the variance in your project would typically be anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000. So again, it feels like a bigger change than it actually is. Next on the list at number 6 is your electrical panel. So quite often, the electrical panel that is on your house has been built to the capacity of the power draw that your house will have. Now, if you add a completely separate house in the backyard, you're going to be drawing more electricity and you're going to need a larger panel. So unless you've upgraded your panel in the last 10 years, say for example you might have added solar or something like that, it's highly likely that you will need to upgrade your panel. And the typical costs, depending on your individual circumstances with what is the supply from the street and various other things, to upgrade a panel you're looking at a cost of anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000. Coming in at number 5 is utility connection fees. Now, the state of California has got some fantastic laws to limit the costs of building accessory dwelling units, but in some cities and counties, there are still charges for things like connecting to sewer and so forth. So for example, in Marin County, there is a connection fee for the sewer service, which is around about $12,000. So that's the highest that we've seen in the state, but it's just something that you need to be very careful about around, okay, well, not only is there permit fees, but there are sometimes utility connection fees and various other things that are applicable to your project. So just make sure that you're looking at those things, at all of those potential costs when you're planning out a project. Coming in at number 4, fire sprinklers. So everyone knows that if your home does not have fire sprinklers, then your ADU should not need to have fire sprinklers. This is true apart from when you are in a situation where there is a particular fire risk. So this could be in a high fire risk area, or say, for example, if the ADU is being situated more than a certain distance away from the street or from a fire hydrant. So it is a risk that even though the ADU legislation protects most people about this, with that simple rule of saying that if they're not in the house, they're not required in the ADU. That's not always the case. So that's, again, something to check on, especially if you're looking at placing the unit a larger distance away from the home. So to add fire sprinklers, it's not just a matter of putting fire sprinklers in the house. There's a number of other systems that need to support that fire sprinklers. So therefore, I've got that at around about a $12,000 cost impact. Coming to number 3, we're in the top 3. So number 3, sewer districts. So this is a big one where typically a sewer trench is 6 inches wide and about 18 inches deep, and it varies a little bit about how far the run has to go. However, in some districts in California, there is an individual sewer district for your particular city, and they can have their own legislation and their own rules about what is required for sewer. And typically when you're in, if you have a separate sewer district, so if you're getting a separate sewer bill from your other bills, then you're typically in a sewer district. Now, when you're in a sewer district, the size of the trench that we generally have to dig is on a volume basis around about 7 times larger than the standard trench that we're doing. And also it requires us to do other things like add additional base rock and various other things. Now, depending on how far we have to trench, where on average you're trenching around about 110 feet from your typical ADU location to the street, this could actually impact costs by up to $30,000 on a project. So before you get into a project, find out if you're in a separate sewer district and make sure that any pricing estimate and so forth, or any provider that you're speaking to, understands what is required when you're in when you've got a separate sewer district. Okay, number 2, septic systems. We're talking a lot about sewer today. Septic systems, they are a really complex challenge to deliver. Not only are they quite expensive to build and to construct, but also to even find out how much the sewer system, the septic system is going to cost. You need to spend some money to do that. So you would need to engage a septic engineer who would do a thing called a perk test and various other things to be able to then size the type of system that you would need. And typically, to even get that work done, you're looking at anywhere to $4,000 to $7,000 to actually get a septic design. And then on top of that, you could be looking anywhere from $15,000 through to even $40,000 for a septic system. So if you're not on city sewer, make sure that you really dig into exactly what the septic system is going to cost before you get too committed to the project. Finally, what's number 1? Well, number 1 is Hillside Foundations. So obviously most of the time we like to think about building ADUs on nice flat land and everything else, but that's not always the case. You're either having, if you're building on a steep hillside, then obviously it's going to be difficult to place a unit directly on that without having a completely different foundation. Now, say for example at Sonderpods, we can handle a change in elevation across the unit of around about 6 feet, and that's through the use of using a small retaining wall and then using our paired foundation. But above that, you're going to have to get a specific foundation engineered for your particular project. Now, this could either be a retaining wall which exceeds 3 feet, which requires engineering, so therefore it triggers a significant amount of cost, or it could be having higher piers and putting the unit up higher, which again would create access issues and health and safety issues, which again you would need to buy railings and various other things like that. So Hillside Foundations, when you go through and look at those solutions, we've seen, when you exceed 6 feet, we've seen anything from $20,000 in additional charges through to over $100,000 in additional charges just to correct the foundation and to get the foundations in correctly, depending on soil types and various other things like that. So again, if you're on a hillside, make sure that you do that work, measure twice, cut once, get all of that information up front. Now, one of the interesting things is that although this is a video about the additional costs of modular housing, it's really only 2 of the top 9 are unique to modular housing, which is the transportation and the crane. Now, undertaking this project with any contractor, whether you're stick building or doing modular, 7 of the top 9 things are common to both. So although these are the things that can potentially change the cost of modular construction, it would change the cost of stick-built construction as well. Hope this was really helpful. If you need any more information, please get in contact with the team at Sonderpods. We're happy to help. We just want to make sure that you understand everything about your project before you get too far into the project and have nasty surprises, because our goal is to deliver a project for you with no surprises. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak soon.